91 years ago, the first civilization settled down and began recording the history of this world, Vildangosod, the Profane Bone. Hello, I'm Dorf Chronicler, and I'm here in a tavern now, taking a break from the mines. I've been going over some notes I've jotted down on the happenings of this world, and thought I'd share some of these tales with you. There are two dwarven civilizations in this world, the South Tongs and the central peaks called the Colorless Mountains, and the Attic of Wax, established in the mountains they call the Steamy Persuaderax. As far as I can tell, they've yet to have any interaction in this first century, but who knows what the next may bring. The South Tongs are ruled by the long-lived Queen Cyril Waldcrafted, who was their monarch ever since were laid the first stones of their first settlement, Cloisterlong. A population of 1,274 people spread across 15 sites worship the deities Sod Rumored Owls, god of dusk, who's depicted as a dwarf, but another of their gods, Sarvesh, who does not have owl in their name, is depicted as a great horned owl. Curious. He's the god of volcanoes, mountains, and fire, by the way. There's also Anam, dwarven goddess of longevity, the Plated, dwarven goddess of both murder and festivals, the Bejeweled Treasure, dwarven god of travelers and wealth, aka the Merchant God, Mondol Tombsdied, the Crypt of Phantoms, usually depicted as a dwarf skeleton associated with death. And finally, the South Tong dwarves also picked up the worship of a human chaos goddess, Strildo Fitsquashed. In Dwarf Fortress, individual characters can worship their own personal, additional deities, tying them narratively to the wider world, in addition to those worshipped by their civilization. And the Queen of the South Tongs, Cyril Waldcrafted, strangely enough, also worships Izeg Topstern, the Teal Whiskers, who is an ant god, specifically a worker ant god, whose domain includes sun, nature, water, and mountains. Maybe she views worker ants as little bug versions of dwarfs. Who knows? The South Tongs have yet to experience any significant wars with other civilizations. They rarely will have some forgotten beast or scary monster show up on their doorstep, which has led to the loss of a few sites, but it's been relatively peaceful for the South Tongs, here on the main landmass of this world, the Vermilion Continent. The other dwarven civilization cannot say the same. The Attic of Wax first founded Bindheims and a nearby hillocks Helpheims in the first year under their monarch, Queen Ubel Crystalloners. The queen would not live long and see the rise of the Attic of Wax, for she was struck down by a cave dragon during what's now known as the Assault of Brutalizing, in the third year of history. Helpheim survived the siege of Eviscerating in 36, only to be destroyed in 44 by a hydra named Gabe. Bindheims would suffer massive losses and was nearly destroyed in the year 47 during the Assaulted attack, but has recovered and is currently a hotspot for both athletic competitions and performances. The next monarch was Errol Shootsteels, who reigned until the year 36 when she too was struck down by a cave dragon during yet another attack from goblins, this time while she was spending time in the far northern settlement Lashed Shocks. Succeeding her was Queen Ingiz Staffbust, who reigned for a decade before being struck down by Ago Dysens, the Connected Spasms, goblin master of the civilization behind all these battles and attacks, the Crazed Spider. Thankfully, the monarch deaths have ceased since then, after King Uzul Shanktrades ascended to the throne, where he still reigns today. The only officially sanctioned deity for the Attic of Wax is Ral Ivory Vaults, the Treasure of Jades, the goddess of wealth. King Uzal, however, worships many additional gods, including Sodel the Honorable, goddess of oaths and loyalty, Lycot Painted Dragons, god of jewels, Lyrit, god of volcanoes, mountains, caverns, and earth, the Whisper of Fogs, god of the sky, stars, night, darkness, and death, Totmon the Adorable, god of music, Lao Blockguard, goddess of fortresses, Ogrid, god of hunting, trickery, and lies, and Dazel Helpure, the Charity of Heavens, goddess of consolation. The Attic of Wax is primarily found in the northern mountains, the steamy Persuadorax. I wonder what causes the dwarves to name places like this. This puts them close enough to various other civilizations, including their arch-nemesis and the cause of all those aforementioned battles and sieges, the goblin civilization, the Crazed Spider. Founded by a feathery iguana demon named Ukath Glumnus Lurches, who was associated with dreams, nightmares, misery, torture, the night, and the stars. The Crazed Spider spawned from Veil Spiders, a dark goblin fort built around the Ashen Spire, a spire thrusting from the underworld. They have waged endless war against the dwarves of the Attic of Wax, with hostilities ongoing still. The Crazed Spider is not the only goblin civilization that wages war against the Attic of Wax. The Rhyming Seduction, found in the Swamp of Ruin, came into being when the Badger Devil, Vukar the Mux of Raunch, thrusted the spires of the Castle of Pus into the world at the Dark Goblin Fortress, now known as Spidery Wax. They've engaged the Attic of Wax in the War of Warriors, the Molten Conflict, the Eviscerated Conflict, and the War of Mobs. There's many other goblin civilizations plaguing the world of the Profane Bone, but one in particular is quite interesting, the Mangy Seduction. Their home is the southwestern mountains, the Boring Spine, and their leader is Zagstock, a scaly camel monster that shoots webs. I don't know why, but so far it has killed 4 of its own goblin subjects in its evil capital Clashteebles, and the underworld spires, the Fortress of Crazes. Speaking of loathsome civilizations, there are many elven civs in this world. Of note is the largest elven civilization of them all, Tangled Water, with over 4,200 members. They are led by the druid Oda Shimmered Petal, and their capital is Yond Glacier, found on the very southern edge of the world. They seem locked in endless conflict against an equally massive goblin civilization, the Devil of Rewards, led by Thoodle Hated Poisons, who is known as a periwinkle demon, and is associated with murder. All of these peoples thus far mentioned are found on the Vermilion continent, the main landmass in this world. There are countless smaller islands off the coast of this land, and many larger islands with maybe a cave or a small feature on them, but there are a handful of truly large subcontinental islands as well. The largest of these is known as the Past Continents and is home to its own collection of elves, goblins, and men who have developed their own nations without exposure to dwarf kind. On this southeastern landmass is the elven civilization the Savage Fells, who have only 200 odd members. Their original capital, Landleaps, was destroyed by Leia Hornlancers the Oily, a bronze colossus, and the elves moved to Anklebud, though about 20 years after losing their capital, an expedition was sent to reclaim their lost capital, and their current civilization is slowly but surely recovering its strength. Much of the conflict on this island subcontinent, though, can be attributed to the Manish civilization, the Empire of Tornadoes. Their lawgiver from the start has always been Devsim Hammernome, who is unironically a legendary milker, as well as a professional musician. So, way to go, man. He worships the force of nature and Nina Pactscaly, the Teal Dunes, which is said by the elves to permeate the Vermilion jungle, and the human deity Asa, god of courage. The Empire of Tornadoes as a whole also worship Ustra the Diamond Crystal, an eagle god representing volcanoes and mountains, and Sut, human goddess of death, who's not to be confused with Sut Ghost Burial, a rotting human goddess associated with death. That goddess is most associated with the reputed confederations. That human civilization is ruled by their lawgiver, Anna Gifted Assault, and in addition to the rotting corpse goddess of death, they also worship Islas the Fiery Flames, goddess of volcanoes, Cool Moth Owl, goddess of trickery, the Saffron Rains, goddess of fertility, agriculture, and food, and Mater, goddess of jewels, wealth, and wisdom. The past continents was once home to more nations and people, but war has taken its toll over the decades. For instance, the Savage Fells were once at war with a civilization of men who were called the Nation of Mouths. They lived long enough to settle 2 towns, Dondrill and Baldness Chambers, before the Savage Fells finally demolished them. The final onslaught was dubbed the Outrageous Attack, and the Nation of Mouths, perhaps poetically, was ended when the last man was eaten by the elf 9 Stranger Fragrance the Strange, aptly named. Of all the non-dwarven civilizations, the most interesting might be the human civilization, the Learned Realms, whose capital first was Drildwain, but it was destroyed by a rock. Their original lawgiver was Rushan Showered Mobs, who died in year 6 when the rock attacked and destroyed Drildwain. What makes this civilization particularly interesting is its current lawgiver, a kobold named Deather Matched Blanket, who worships the human deity Strildo Fitsquashed, the goddess of chaos. The kobold has actually been the lawgiver of the Learned Realms for about 50 years now, and over that time has been appointing other kobolds to high-up positions, like the Master of Beasts and the High Advisor. Who can say what the true motives of these kobolds are? They're otherwise fairly hidden creatures, and seldom are even encountered unless some adventurers draw near to their cave hideouts. One known kobold cave hideout, by the way, is on an island in a very cold corner of the world, called Stunts Umbra, and inhabited by the kobolds who call themselves Tlav Faerber. The dwarves call this island the Forest of Pools. There are still more civilizations throughout the world of the Profane Bone, but I think this is about enough talk of Vildangosod for now. There's over 60,000 people throughout the world. Over half of those are goblins, about a quarter of them are elves, maybe about 17% are humans, while less than 3% are dwarfs. And for those curious, by the way, about 1% are kobolds. There's plenty of figures, plenty of places that have stories remaining to be told, and the next century is almost come. Many civilizations are embarking new settlements in preparation for the next chapter of history throughout the world, and the dwarfs are no exception. Soon, many new dwarf settlements will rise, and some may also fall. I think it's best to look forward to these new stories that are going to develop, and I hope you follow along on the journey. If you do, I thank you. Follow, like, subscribe, all of that to stay tuned on the latest chronicle of dwarf history. I'm Dorf Chronicler, and until next time, take it easy.